Okay, so this is class 41 on the Golden Doves. We're page 6 of the chapter or the section entitled Writing and Graffiti. You want me to read? 'Cause I know you only have it on your phone. I can read if you want to.
Yeah,
Okay,
go. You may read.
okay. It is highly significant that outside the Holy Land, in the Arabian Peninsula, a country dominated by the desert, the Hebrews discovered their identity as Ahlu il-Kitabu, the people of the book. So in the previous class, I explained the relationship between desert and book, how you can only receive the book in the desert because it's only in the silence
Mhm.
of the desert that you can hear the words uttered by God in their full transparency. That's why it says, "V'chol ha'am ro'im et hakolot." The possibility of ro'im et hakolot is only in בחודש השלישי ביום הזה באו מדבר סיני. It's only because באו מדבר Sinai that you can have the experience of רואים את הקולות. So the book is contingent on the desert. On the other hand, the desert is contingent on the book because the only way to survive the desert is through the book. So the two things are contingent on each other. So it's very interesting that as a historical fact, we became the Ahlu il-Kitabu when we lived in the Arabian desert, right? Because they projected themselves as the people of the book, even the Jahili, unlettered, ignorant pre-Islamic Arabs, recognized them as such. So even the Arabs recognized us as the people of the book. However,
Yes.
the identification, book, people of the book, was already present in the Holy Land in Roman times. So this
Interesting.
recorded in Eretz Israel and the Second Commonwealth. The habit of burning the Jew together with his book indicates the close association of these two items in the mind of the Romans, an association of later times as well. So this idea that they would, let's say, Rabbi Hananiah ben Teradion, they burnt him with the Sefer Torah, the famous story, but that's the way they used to do it. They used to burn them with the book, was precisely because we were considered the people of the book by the Romans. Romans considered us the people of the book, and they treated us as the people of the book. I'm just going to look at the footnote, and no,
Where
nothing,
did, oh, I don't have it.
nothing. It's fine.
I got out of it. Okay.
All right. Referring to the identification of the Hebrews with the Talmud during the Middle Ages, Rafael Cancinos Asens remarked that never was there seen such a close association between a people and her book. It really is fascinating. Then he added, in the days of medieval persecutions, people and book share the same nefarious destiny and burn in the same blaze of the same pyre, and they are wounded by the same pyre, and they are wounded by the same keen swords. And one communicates to the other the same fate for suffering, the same innocent cause for torture. So when they used to burn the Sefer Torah, or they would burn the books, they would burn the Talmud, they would burn the books of Harambam, um, they would burn people together with the books. Sometimes the fires are kindled for the culprits for having put their eyes and soul on the nefarious book. Sometimes you burn a person because he dared to open up the Chumash and read the Chumash, or dared to open up the Gemara and read the Gemara. At other times, I'm not talking about the Haredi yeshivot when I say about burning the, reading the, that they would burn the person for reading the Chumash. I'm talking about the, in Spain, in the Inquisition. Just I didn't want there to be a misunderstanding. At other times, the very book is, by the way, it's amok. The reason that in these yeshivot, I'm talking about the Haredi yeshivot, obviously not all of them and not all Haredi yeshivot, but the reason it's so common to be against the study of Chumash, literally against the study of Tanakh, is precisely because today they're not the people of the book. Today, these yeshivot are the people of the anti-book.
Manishma, 1 second. Just one moment. Pause the recording.
Today, they are the people of the anti-book. The way the yeshivas study is anti-book. Let me explain that. It's very amok. Why is it that you can't study Gemara without Rashi, without Tosafot? Why is that? Because nobody wants to read anymore. You're not allowed to read the text of the Gemara. The Gemara only says what Rashi says the Gemara says. But I have to, unfortunately, I have to preface these things, and and it seems redundant, but it's the world we live in. Chas v'shalom, we absolutely love and have the greatest respect for Rashi. I consider him to be one of the absolutely greatest Chachamim. Not even a question. I don't so. But why is it that you're not allowed to read the Gemara? What does the Gemara say? The Gemara says what Rashi says it says. Why is that? Because we no longer read. You're not allowed to face the book independently. You're told what the book says. So we're no longer the people of the book.
You have to face man and not the book.
Right. We're people of the anti-book. Okay? All right, let's continue. I mean, today, back then we weren't.
Some of us.
Some of us, yeah. Right. Thus, I'm sorry. At other times, the very book is wounded and burned as if it were a living creature, as a sorcerer accused of evil doing, right? So they would want to torture the book. Thus, on more than one occasion, the abominable book was burned by the order of the bishops with the same sumptuous cruelty and in the same fashion as they burned, crowned with the coroza, hat used as a mark of infamy. They used to have in the Inquisition, they used to have this hat that they would put on top of the people that was called a coroza, and that meant that you're a picoros, a mean, right? And dressed with infamous garments, the sad creature guilty of having read it, right? So what I understand from here is that they would sometimes put the koroza on the Sefer Torah itself, right? Yani as if it was a living person, and it deserved this maltreatment. So that's really fascinating. Okay, let's continue in the book. That was the end of the quote by Rafael Cancinos Asens. Okay, outside the perimeter of book, people of the book, reading is categorically excluded. Writing becomes graffiti, and the bookman replaces the man of the book. So the only way you can have reading, and the only way you can have writing, is when you have a people of the book. Because otherwise, if you don't have a people of the book, if you don't have a written text, all you have is graffiti. So by graffiti here, he means hieroglyphic type signs. So you can have words, and words can have the functionality of hieroglyphics, in which case there is no room. In which case there is no room for interpretation. When you have hieroglyphics, there's nothing to interpret. You recognize the sign, or you can have a text, and in a text, you're invited to open the text and to confront the text directly. Right. So, and the bookman replaces the man of the book. So
Who's the bookman?
Okay, just one moment. Okay, so and the bookman replaces the man of the book. So the man of the book, of course, is a person who can confront the book and read the book directly without an intermediary. That's the man of the book. The bookman is a person who collects books and loves books that become like a like a type of kamia for him. Elias Kennedy, who was a Sephardi from Bulgaria, and he won the Nobel Prize for this book, examines the nature of books and the bookman in Western tradition. Kien, Peter Kien, as it were. The principal character of DaFe typifies the bookman, meaning the book collector. For that was how I saw him, said Kennedy, as a bookman, and so intensely that his connection to books was far more important than himself. So for him, the books were really, really important. Okay. These books were written in a language foreign to Kien. These were books that he never read, that he could not read, whose very content was alien, inconsequential, and inaccessible to him and to the world in which he lived. So you have, for example, they collect old manuscripts. They have old manuscripts of of the works of great Talmidei Chachamim hidden in museums somewhere where nobody can ever read them. And yet the museum considers these manuscripts to be precious and invaluable, and they must have them. They love these manuscripts. The only thing is they can't read them. Right. So that's a book, man.
Yes.
Right. Um, right. The books were objects to be possessed and protected, not to be read. You see, because the book is so valuable. It's a rare edition. It's an intinavula. Nobody has this book. Nobody has this ktav yad, right? So hide it away in a museum. Nobody will ever read it, but you will own the book. Right? Um, the books provoke a crisis. Hien, the word hien means pine wood in German, has combustibility. Interesting. So he himself is pine wood, which is fire. As a true bookman, he resolves a crisis through cremation. He ends up cremating himself and his books, right?
This kind of reminds me of the book Fahrenheit 451, if you remember.
I
The Ray
do remember
Bradbury
the book.
book.
I just don't remember reading it.
It's the Ray Bradbury book about like the burning of books.
Oh yeah, interesting. So unlike the desert of the book, cremation, so the book, the Torah itself is like a desert. That's why it's written on white parchment, right? And in the desert,
Yes.
you generate meaning. So on the white parchment of the Torah, of the Gevil, you write the black letters. And I explained this in the previous class a lot, what it means that the words are the desert. Anyway, unlike the desert of the book, cremation is not a metaphor, a space of dust or ashes where speech is displayed in total nudity. So that's what I said. So in order to have words which are completely transparent, you need to have the white parchment, right? That's not the way it works in cremation. In the case of cremation, it is destruction, simple and unabashed, right? So you have the complete destruction of the book, which is what happens in the Oro DaFe, where there is no reading. So because there is no reading, what do you have? The only thing you can do is you can burn the book. Well, you can't read it, so you have to burn it. When you read in the desert, the words, this has to do with the Sodot of the Torah. I'm going to be careful how I say this. When you read in the desert, the word themselves become dust because the meaning of words becomes confusing, hayran, at a certain level of understanding. And then and that's why in Harambam, he gives you the different semantic fields of words, right? So the words become dust, but the reason the words become dust is to open up a window to a new understanding. So that's not the destruction of the book, but that's rather the turning of words into dust so that there is a new type of illumination. But in the Oro DaFe, the actual book is destroyed. It is destruction, simple and unabashed, an act in which books and all they represent become the instrument and object of devastation, because you need the books to make the fire. The books is what makes the fire, but the books themselves are destroyed by the fire. So you see the relationship, desert book, you need the desert to have the book, because without the desert, you can't hear the word, and you need the book in the desert, otherwise you can't survive the desert. That's the book crowd. In the anti-book crowd, you need the book to have the fire, you need the fire to have the book, and it leads to complete destruction. That's why biblical criticism is so important. All these biblical critics, they were in places, universities, where they had these manuscripts and books, and they were really they were like invaluable and incredibly prestigious to have that particular copy and that manuscript. And those were the places where they try to destroy the Torah through biblical criticism. That's why biblical criticism is so important to the Western world, because the Western world is anti-book. And if you're anti-book, the only thing you can do with the book is to burn the book, or in the case of Western society, biblical critics.
Mm-hmm.
It is through Kien, which again means pine wood, that Kennedy comes to a personal realization of the desert. A desert that for Kennedy, as for Yabes, is self-created. From the Choshech of Kien, who is the anti-book, Kennedy explains what is the desert of the Jewish people. What is that desert which is necessary for reading? Reflecting on Kien's end, he remarked, and I felt my own books drawn into that fate in some incomprehensible way. It may have been guilt for permitting Kien to lay hands on books. It may have been justice in having to sacrifice my own books for his. But whatever it was, they denied themselves to me, meaning the books denied themselves to Kennedy, who was narrating the story. And I found myself burnt, empty, and blind inside or in myself created desert. So without the books, what you're left with is a desert and nothing else, right? So, and you can't survive the desert if you don't have the book. End of quote. You have any questions before I continue?
No, so far so good.
The type of reading characteristic of the bookman reflects the essential monolingualism peculiar to the ancient Greeks and their refusal to become involved in foreign cultures, right? So for Greeks, the Greek language was the supreme language, and all languages were aberrations and imperfect ways of describing reality. Only the Greek language can describe reality. So, um, right, and because of that, the Greeks were not interested in understanding other cultures. Arnaldo Momiano, Stella considers Arnaldo Momiano to be one of the great historians. He was an Italian
Yes.
historian from the 20th century, has shown that unlike the Hebrews and Romans who learned Greek, the Greeks never had the curiosity to learn any foreign language. And this has to do with the Aristotelian view of the world as being an ontological entity out there that can just be perceived perfectly by the mind. So if there is just an objective reality out there, what do I care about different perspectives? The different perspectives are meaningless to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was a Greek attitude. Monolingualism appears as an essential. Now, by the way, just so you understand, so when you have that, when you say that there's a world out there, that excludes the possibility of reading, because reading means that there is an interaction between the text and the reader generates certain meanings based on his very unique perspective, right? Ashiv'im panim laTorah, right? So every ummah, every lashon approaches the text in a slightly different way and generates a slightly different derasha, right? So
Yes.
so the idea of Greeks and monolingualism is anti-text. So when you have monolingualism, what do you do with the book? You burn it because you don't need the book. Language and writing,
Mm-hmm.
as Jayla showed in his article on the subject, writing, the written text is a bad thing because it prevents you from reaching the real emet out there. The text is like a screen. It doesn't allow you to get to the emet. So you
Mm-hmm.
see all the connections here?
Yes.
Monolingualism appears as an essential trait of the Greek mind. And here I think he's quoting Momiano, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just see. Yes, the fault of the Greeks. This is one of the manifestations of what we may call the normal attitude of the Greeks to foreign civilizations as we know it from the time of Homer onwards. Whether Homer was right or wrong in taking the Trojans as Greek speakers is beside the point. What matters is that his very humane understanding of conflicts presupposes monolingualism. So, monolingualism is similar to Star Trek. It doesn't matter where the Starship Enterprise goes, everybody speaks English in an American accent. And if somebody speaks English in a British accent, you know that this is a very strange alien race, right? They are far more intelligent than us simple humanoids. They're speaking in a British accent. And that obviously means that they're far more intelligent, but it's English, but it is English. That's a monolingual mind, right? The dialogue with the Greeks happened, writes Momiano, because the Romans and the Jews wanted it, right? If it wasn't for the fact that we wanted to have a dialogue with the Greeks, there would never have been a dialogue because they were not interested in dialogue. Um, Similar to the Democratic Party of the United States today. You are not allowed to say, and I'm not saying that they're wrong or right, but if somebody expresses a view that is different than the accepted view, you are now canceled, right? They will cancel you. They will see to it that you that harm befalls you. They have this movie actress who was on some Disney show that has to do with Star Wars, and she expressed a view that was meanest, mamash, mamash, meanest. I don't remember what horrible minute she said, but it was mamash, meanest. And we know it was because the Democrats told us it was, and she lost her job in Disney. She lost her job in Disney. So that's monolingualism. Monolingualism is that, of course, if you disagree with me, you are a pervert. You are not somebody that can be part of society, and the proof is that you disagree with me. That was the Greek
It's
attitude.
kind of funny how in the name of liberalism, the society has become the most unliberal place ever.
Well, not the most unliberal. We still haven't reached the level of Stalin in Soviet
Fine,
Russia,
but
although we are going in that direction. Right.
things aren't great.
Things aren't great.
They're not great.
Right. Stalin in Soviet Russia taught the people that the kulaks, who were the farmers, were the worst capitalists, evil capitalists, and he caused the people, the mob, to massacre the kulaks. And of course, this led to mass starvation because without farmers, there's no food to eat. So what are they doing now in the United States? The small businesses, the hard workers, the backbone of the of the economy, they are bad, right? And they're going to destroy them. That's what they're trying to do now. They're trying to destroy them using different rhetoric, rhetorical tools why they should be destroyed. But that's the goal. Okay, we'll see how well that goes. So continuing in the text, so you see how monolingualism is alive and well. Greek thinking is alive and well. Okay, when the Greeks were confronted with a foreign culture, silence or escapism was perhaps the usual reaction. Like, this doesn't make any sense. He doesn't agree with me. Oh my gosh. Okay, this escapism is particularly evident in their literary accounts of the Oriental world and its wisdom. How do you deal with Chinese? They look different. They don't even talk English. I mean, it's, oh my gosh. Right. On the other hand, the old disinclination of the Greeks to learn foreign languages is only too plainly confirmed by these products. Hardly anyone had the linguistic knowledge to recognize the swindles. True enough, after Plato, Oriental wise men became real to the Greeks. But what passed for their thoughts was to a great extent Greek fabrication. An unreal Oriental world was created to satisfy the craving for revealed and mysterious wisdom. Let me give you a great example. There is kosher Chinese food, right? So kosher Chinese food has various, delicacies. I don't think there was any relationship between what they call kosher Chinese food and what Chinese actually eat in China. Okay, I'm not saying that as a joke. I'm pretty sure that what they call Chinese food has nothing to do with Chinese food. So what the Greeks called Oriental wisdom, the wisdom of the Orient was what the Greeks said that the Oriental wisdom was, but it had nothing to do with the actual Oriental wisdom, right? And that happens all the time. So they're going to tell us that the Sephardim, they have all these Sephardic organizations on Facebook, to understand the Sephardim better. I think they have something in Washington University in Seattle. So, the Sephardi culture, they used to eat bulemas on Saturday morning and sing romanceros. And that is the wisdom of Sepharad. They sung one, En una casa chica, vidi una iji. That's the Sephardic world. And of course, the bulemas. I don't even know what bulemas are, but I'm pretty sure it's a Sephardic food. So what is it we know about Sephardim? What they tell us we should know about Sephardim. They ate bulemas and they sing romanceros. Wow, that's so beautiful. So they say things about other cultures. So what do I know about the Chinese? I don't have a clue about what the Chinese are, but they tell me that Chinese food, the sweet and sour chicken, is actually Chinese. It's a Chinese food. And the fortune cookies, also that's Chinese. Could be אני לא יודע. Just, but they say that the Chinese have fortune cookies. So a typical Chinese family eating dinner, they would start dinner. We start with grace. They start with a fortune cookie. A fortune cookie, and the fortune cookie had English writing inside, yes, on English paper. That's monolingualism.
Maybe.
That's monolingualism. I think we can stop here.
Okay.